Hello guys and welcome back to a new video. If you will enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments to help me boost this video. Thanks. Story 1. Making noise to scare potential buyers away. Good luck living next to a dance studio. Some time ago we lived in a twin house with one shared wall. No problem with neighbors for years. We only heard some really loud noise once or twice, but that happens. Until neighbors moved in. They had a load of children, like 6 or more, and pretty young. And noisy. But whatever, children are children, and earplugs are awesome. But then the wife, let's call her Erica, shows interest in our house. It has been for sale for a while, actually, even before they moved in. So they look around, do negotiations, offer a laughably low price, complain about everything, you know the drill. But still, they really want to buy the house. Mom said pay the price, or no deal. And now starts the not-so-silent war. Actually very loud war. Every day when the children were at home, they would be even more loud than before. Like screaming and running, jumping around so much that the walls were shaking. We actually overheard Erica praising the kids and encouraging it. So it was 100% intentional. Okay, Mom brings up an old radio and starts blasting music. They blast music right back. On one occasion from the same FM. Not a fun way to live in our home, but what can we do? And some potential buyers come over, and guess what? Neighbors are even more noisy. Somehow they found out, and put up drums or have the children scream. Every single time. All the while still trying to negotiate buying the house. There was some back and forth, but didn't go anywhere. This went on for months, until we found the perfect new owner of our home. Lady fell in love with the house, and when the problem with the neighbors came up, turns out it wasn't a problem for her. Her dream is a dance studio, and general noise doesn't bother her. So when again we want to buy it, offer came from neighbors. We had the pleasure to tell them they missed it. And now they can enjoy new ladies' dance studio with a ton of people coming and going every day. All the noise they made. Karma brought it right back. Moral of the story, don't scare away the nice potential buyers, because the one who remains can give back as well. And they get. Story 2. Wrath of the Being. Quick disclaimer, first time posting here, not my own story, but that of my cousin. Apologies for any mistakes. This story was too much for pro-revenge, but not enough for nuclear revenge, so they suggested I try posting here. Enjoy. So my little cousin, 15 meters, is a very smart kid. He spends his hours reading biology and chemistry books for fun, and is at the top of his grade. However, he's pretty weak physically, and was the target of bullying from this one group of boys. The key word there is was. But first some background. Cousin usually kept a low profile, but had ended up winning some sort of essay competition. And it was announced in front of his school since there was prize money. After that day there was this group that would harass him and bully him, be it in the cafeteria, the bathrooms, or even just outside the school. He didn't give too many details, but I saw pictures of the bruises and the ripped up notebooks, just really juvenile stuff. What he considered the ultimate crime that pushed things over the edge was they started stealing his lunch. My auntie is a fantastic cook, to the point where everyone looks forward to her food on holidays, and cousin loves her food and will always take leftovers to eat for school. These bullies would take his lunch and eat it right in front of him while holding him down. Then insult the cooking and insult his mother, which royally pissed cousin off. It was their favorite method of torment since it angered him so much. So he decided to take revenge through the food. The next few days, cousin asked auntie to make tacos every day. It confused her, but he assured her this was what he wanted, and she didn't object. Eventually, the time came when they cornered cousin again and took his bag from him while hitting him. They took out the tacos, and my cousin asked them, "Are you sure you want to eat those?" They ignored the rather obvious warning and scarfed them down, spitting in his face and leaving him to clean himself up. Cousin collected his things and continued on with his day until it was time to leave. A few hours later, the usual hallway he would use was quarantined, and he had to go around. The news spread insanely fast. One of the bullies had suffered from vomiting and crapping his pants at the same time in front of everyone. The floor was a mess, and an ambulance was en route. My cousin smiled. He explained to me what he had done. When his mother made the tacos, my cousin had put undercooked kidney beans into the food, 1 bean in each taco, 3 tacos in total, so the bullies wouldn't notice and eat it. If you didn't know, raw or undercooked kidney beans cause severe food poisoning, and just 1 undercooked bean is potent enough to cause emissions from both ends and severe abdominal pain. He had effectively poisoned his bully, but there was no way to trace it back to him without revealing he was being bullied and the teachers weren't doing anything. And even if there was a trace, how would they prove intentional food poisoning? The guys didn't bother him for a while and were absent, and when I asked for the aftermath, cousin told me the kid who got sick at school ended up in the hospital, getting his stomach pumped on IVs for the dehydration and painkillers since his insides were trying to become his outsides. The 2 that didn't get sick at school ended up sick later with the same symptoms, and were also rumored to have gone to the hospital. And he wasn't sure, since the rumors included everything from passing blood to rupturing organs. You know how rumors fly. Cousin wasn't questioned, as of course none of the bullies ratted themselves out, and never told any of the other students until I asked for the story. The next time the bullies approached him in the lunchroom a couple weeks later, cousin immediately offered up his lunch with a grin, saying there were leftovers if they wanted them. The ones that had suffered from the wrath of the beans realized what his intentions were, and they backed off that day. Unfortunately, it took a while to get rid of the bullies, but after that, cousin never had to worry about his lunch being stolen again. Auntie refused to make tacos for a while, though. Story 3. A whole landlord screws over longstanding tenant, kicks him out, ends up losing house. I don't know exactly where to put this story, so this seemed as appropriate as any. Call it life's revenge or karma, but didn't see other subs that exactly covered that. This happened about 4 years ago. I work as a city letter carrier for the U.S. Post Office, and this incident involved a house on my route at that time. John had been renting the house for over 10 years at this point, and despite his son offering to have him come live with him and his family, John was content to keep living in his house. It was in a poorer, rougher part of town. Drug dealers, gunshots, the occasional killing. Wasn't a very nice house, but it was home for him, and he paid the rent on time every single month. Basically a model tenant. One day John tells me he's finally going to move out. See, the landlord is trying to screw him over. I asked, how so? And he told me that a water pipe that runs under the house had sprung a leak. I asked how he would know that, to which he replied, I got a $700 water bill this month. So John had called the landlord to let him know about it, that the landlord needed to take care of the problem and the bill. The landlord refused, insisting that John was responsible for the water bill, despite it being an issue with the house that fell under the landlord's responsibilities, and if John didn't pay it, he was going to be evicted. Well, John had an out. He had a family that wanted him to come live with them, so that's exactly what he did, and the landlord was stuck with the bill. The landlord clearly had the money to pay the water bill. See, after John moved out, he not only fixed the water pipe, he spent a good bit of money fixing the house up, too, presumably to make it more attractive to other renters, maybe to charge more rent, IDK. What I do know is that he got the house rented again pretty soon after he finished the work. A group of 4 people moved in, rough-looking sort. They paid their rent on time, as they were there for a couple of months, until their meth-making equipment turned over one night and burned the house out. It was still standing, but it was condemned by the city and remains empty to this day. Tried to screw over an honest and decent man, ended up losing his house. Best part was that John would occasionally drive down the street to check out his old house, so he knew exactly what happened, and we exchanged smiles every time we saw each other until I moved on to another route. Story 4. City won't pay $4,500, loses $500 K. This is my revenge, or maybe karma, story. It goes back to the 1970s, but just ended a few years ago, and it makes me smile every time I drive past a particular piece of property, knowing the city screwed themselves. My wife and I purchased a 1.5-acre bare corner lot for $7,500 in a second-tier suburb. Gravel road on one side, asphalt county road on the other. The intentions were to build our first house in 4 or 5 years after saving up enough money to afford it. The planning and zoning people we talked to before purchasing the lot assured us the roads wouldn't be improved, to use their exact words, in our lifetime. Lo and behold, 4 years later, we are assessed $45,000 because a housing developer purchased all the land around us to build a huge housing subdivision. I am unsure how many lots, but well over 100. With that kind of density, curb, gutters, sewer, water, and paving were required. So the developer pushed through the planning commission and city council a project to get this done, with each property owner assessed their portion based on frontage. Since ours was a corner lot, we got hit twice, assessed per lineal frontage foot for each of the 2 sides of the lot. To make matters worse, after the city took land easements from us, required to widen the road and install the improvements, our lot size was reduced by almost half an acre to 0.98 acres. When they presented the easement paperwork for signature, I took it to an attorney to review, and his first question was how much they were offering in compensation. They offered nothing. They were hoping the whole process would just proceed without the issue of payment coming up. When confronted with this omission, the city's reply was, "We don't usually pay for these easements. Your neighbors didn't ask for payment." My neighbors were also not assessed nearly as much as me, and to the best of my knowledge didn't hire a lawyer to review the paperwork. To make a long story short, I ended up negotiating a $4,500 payment. But there is more. My lawyer also said real estate cannot be assessed, no matter how much it cost the city, for more than the increased market value of the lot after the assessment. So we sued. After several attempts to sell the lot for $45,000 with no takers, it was appraised at a substantially lower value, and we won a settlement from the city, reducing the assessment to only $13,500. But there is still more. Remember, this all happened in the 1970s. The amounts would be more than triple in today's dollars. To recoup some of the costs, I presented a development plan to the city council to put 6 small rental units attached row houses on the property, because the existing R1 single-family zoning wasn't feasible anymore, and it was now on a corner with higher traffic. My proposal was shot down on multiple occasions, ever after revisions were made at the request of the city planner to bring everything within zoning ordinances. It turns out the planning commission and city council resented having to pay for the easement several years back, and that there was a domino effect. When the neighbors heard the city paid me, they also wanted to be paid. Several attempts were also made to get the lot rezoned commercial to build a gas station, fast food restaurant, or similar business, but they were all shot down. I ended up donating the lot to a non-profit that builds houses for the homeless, similar to Habitat for Humanity. A very generous market value appraisal gave me a huge income tax deduction, allowing me to almost break even. Now the rest of the story. The organization the lot was donated to went bankrupt. I know this because the city started to come after me for unpaid property taxes on the land in the early 0980s until it was proven to then title to the lot was transferred to the non-profit several years previously. The lot stood vacant for 40 years, being maintained by the city. We still live in the neighborhood, and I chuckled over the years every time I drove by it with the family. 2 years ago, I noticed the city finally sold it, and what appears to be a 4-unit residential building was constructed. The revenge, karma. The 6 small rental units I wanted to build 40-plus years ago would have been valued at the time at $500,000. Had the city allowed construction when first requested in the late 1970s, the 6 units would have an assessed market value today of $1.5 million. Based on the market value of similar units in the area, 6 units at $250,000 each, actually on the low side. With an average assessed value over 40 years of $1 million and a 1.32% average property tax rate, the city lost $528,000 in tax revenue because the city council didn't want to pay me $4,500. Story 5. The one time I pulled my bicycle over for the cops. So I was looking through my post in other channels. Thought this one fit the billet for planned revenge. So in my past, I've headed to different locations to cook. Sometimes you have to moonlight during the off-season. Raise your hands if you've done that one. So there's this nice coastal road that runs to the world's tiniest community. We're talking less than 10K in people, most rich, entitled types. The town is mostly crime-free. The biggest crime there was when someone went serial littering. So the cops have nothing to do. So for weeks I worked at a local restaurant, cafe, as a line cook. No issue. I ride my bike out there often enough. The glitch was I got followed every single day by local PD. I'm Hispanic. It's mostly Caucasian in this small town, but I am not gonna accuse anyone of racially profiling me. Again, it's a tight-knit community with no crime and the cops have nothing to do. They follow me for going on weeks to months. So after a year I finally get fed up with it. So I hatch a small plan to deal with them in a fun way. Keep in mind they are tailing me from the beginning of the town's border to where I work. I've tested them. It's me. I've taken other streets and they still follow me. On this particular day I suddenly slam on my brakes and wait for them to catch up. As they are a few feet away I start waving like an idiot. I've got this happy lunatic, insurance agent Ned Ryerson smile. And with a Ned Flanders kind of voice, I say, "Good afternoon, officers. It's so good to see you." I was honestly ready to talk a good half hour on any random topic, just to make them think I'm an intensive talker. As I extend my hand to shake theirs, they suddenly speed off with a freaked out look. No real fallout, but I never saw them again. Story 6. Karma strikes, you're the fire marshal. Let me introduce you to my friends. You're the fire marshal. Let me introduce you to my friends. So my family owns a small water store in the middle of tiny strip mall in our town. Back in the beginning of the water store's life, 5 years into owning, we had an interesting visitor. 2009, a man claiming he was the first marshal, and he was doing inspections for the area. He forcefully walked through our building without authority paperwork or such, claiming a half-dozen infractions. Keep in mind he had a badge, he had business cards, he had quite the gruff exterior. He was a bit muscle and had this in-control attitude. He then wrote a bill-ups of what need to be done, and the man moved on and we reacted with a bad scare as we threw how to fix all this. We of course checked with our insurance, but conveniently a fire safety company whom provides fire extinguisher services, fire alarms, etc. on the same day walked in and asked if their services were needed. He said he saw the fire marshal and thought that we odds or had a list of infractions on us. Should have seen this one coming. So the fire company reprehensive starts writing an estimate while looking over the list the fire marshal gave us. We got suspicious. Keep in mind we were a young business, slow on the uptake. We had a hunch. Why? Every business was inspected in our little strip mall, and the timing between the two events. How often do you get an inspection and then someone with an answer? LOL. So my dad and I are beginning to feel it's a scam. We decide to investigate. Turns out after calling local fire authority and fire department, they confirmed that both these guys were fakes. A fake fire marshal and a fake company were scamming people in the area. So over a weekend we contacted the appropriate companies and repaired what was needed and recharged our fire extinguisher. No issues. Our landlord was happy to help. We then waited for the guy to try to pressure us again. When he showed up again, we showed him how we'd fixed it all, and he walked out in pain. Let's jump ahead 2 years. Now my dad is a friendly sort. He loves shaking hands and meeting people. He made friends with the local fire marshal and the fire chief. They are both regulars in our water store. So the fake fire marshal came back. He said he was doing a surprise inspection again and was going to walk around. He enters into our shop. He makes some notes. He then walks to the cross section. This is a key element. One door leads to a bathroom. One door goes to our storage. One door goes to our neighbor's place. There's several fire escape plans posted including on that door and around the facility. He goes into the storage room to count violations. What he didn't count on was as he was doing his inspection, the real fire marshal and chief of the local fire department walked in. Oath and civvies out of uniform. Oath are now retired, but still get water. We got to know the new ones too. They were getting water from our store, filling it and talking. I told them both to keep quiet for a moment. I told them what was going on. One of them steps out and calls the police. He returns and we wait. As the fake fire marshal walks in with his list of infractions, I prepare something. I close our front door and show him a pair of fire extinguishers he forgot to inspect. He checks them. I pretend to resume a conversation and end with a joke and start lightly chatting it up with my two friends, customers. I ask the fake fire marshal, "Hey faker, have you met Gent 1 or Gent 2? Keep in mind, I introduced them as normal people. Faker, "No, I haven't." He shakes their hands. "Well, funny story, ... See, the reason I'm laugh is they work in the same line as you." Faker, "Oh yeah." "Yeah." They introduce themselves and shake hands, saying it's an honor to meet another local hero. The funny thing is, I didn't think you'd know them. This time I introduced them for real. They show their badges and real cards. I stand with a smug grin. The fake fire marshal steps back into our counter. He's chuckling on and realizes the jig is up. He's trying to explain things and making excuses. Suffice to say he ran for the cross section, but I guess missed the turn cause he ran into a dead-end storage room. We wait for the police, and he's arrested. As he's being taken away, he's screaming that these guys are the fakers, that he's in the right. Some days later, the fire safety company guy is arrested too. Turns out the guy was related to him, and the two had been running this scam up and down the entire coast. Hope this one made you smile.